are people going to do? And so that fear of they didn't want the children, the parents didn't want us to get involved. However, as I have researched this and interviewed people that are my age, we were 14 and 15 in the 60s. Once John Buffington came and rented this Freedom House on Carter Street, then all of these young people started to come to the Freedom House and congregate because they were curious. And that's when the diffusion occurred. It's like when rap music first started out. Only black people would, not the rap music, the ghetto boxes that the kids used to carry. All of a sudden, when you saw white kids walking down the street with these big ghetto boxes, that was a diffusion of the cultures. They had been introduced to something else.
Well, y'all bigger teachers though than they are now. Well, you are more about teaching us that we need to fight for our rights, need to be free,
we were about that. And in the olden days, we got $10 a month. That was our salaries. If you couldn't live off of $10 a month, you may as well go on someplace else. It wasn't about the money. It was about we were dedicated to a cause. There needed to be some changes. When Buffington came to West Point in 1964, that's the year I graduated high school, there were 11 black registered voters in Clay County, Mississippi.
In 1964?
In 1964.
Only 11
11 black registered voters. According to the United States Census Bureau, 1960 Census Bureau, 68% of the 19,000 people in Clay County were black. By the time of 1965, the population had fallen to 17,000. There was a migration. Things were so heated and so bad and so unpleasant, living in dilapidated houses. Some people, we didn't have running water in our houses. We were
carrying water.
We were carrying water. You had outdoor toilets. It was a horrible life. And you worked for $2 a day. And I interviewed one lady said that she was making $15 a day, $15 a week cooking in the kitchen trying to raise 9 children. We could cook for the white people, but we were not treated as humans. You know, you couldn't associate with them. And so that was unacceptable. It had been unacceptable, but it took somebody from somewhere else to come in and tell us, you all don't have to take this. This is America. It is your constitutional right to do these things. And so from that, the civil rights movement kind of blossomed. Then after we, the young people, became involved, one of the first people that was arrested in West Point was Carl Rice Jr. There was a stirring. This happened at Fifth Street High School. There was a stirring at Fifth Street High School. Some girls were fighting. And when the police came, Carl Rice yelled, "Block the cars, block the cars." And from that moment on, young people took to the street. Some 300 or 400 of them. So Carl got locked up with Ronald Dean and Johnny Wilson, and everybody went to jail. And so it became apparent to the old folks that they needed to either blink their eyes and go to sleep.
Yeah.
Because we young people were in it. And what propelled me to look at it is when we talk about civil rights in the national context, we always talk about Martin Luther King, Martin Luther King, Martin Luther King.
Do we do it too much?
I think we overdid it, because if you really want to live the dream, I was in somewhere yesterday at the Oxford Library, 12:30. There are 5 little kids sitting up in the library playing games at 4th graders. Why weren't they in school? You know, people lost their lives in these little towns. We had 3 people killed in West Point. We had a 17-year-old, and a 18-year-old student from Florida. One morning, somebody was riding by going to church, and there they were dead over in this little ditch. And those has never been resolved. And so you got people that Martin Luther King was obviously the best choice to be the national leader, because he had the education, he was suave, he had the, he was elegant, and he could speak, he was calm in his demeanor. And so all of the civil rights organizations.
Did it take that? Did it take that to get it across?
Yeah, because see, Stokely and the rest of us would have been up there trying to shoot Johnson and them. We were real radical. We were radical. We were burning down West Point.
So we would have been, combative.
Now, not combated. It was a revolution.
Okay.
And if you know anything about Gil Scott-Heron music,
Sure.
the revolution would not be televised.
Yeah.
It was a revolution going on in every little town in Mississippi. There could have never been a Poor People's March had it not been for the folks up there in Marks, Mississippi that helped organize it. King never set foot in any of these places. And so I was compelled to look at these and try to figure out of all of these things that we lived up under, it was like an apartheid system in Africa. If you know anything about Mississippi history, back in the early 19th centuries, Mississippians went to Africa to study the apartheid system. And so we were living under an apartheid system. And so I wanted to know what prompted us to change the way we view apartheid in Mississippi, or the Jim Crow system, to make us stand up and challenge it. Our goal was to tear it down, and we did.
Well, I got about 3 minutes here, because it always flies when you're having fun. Who would have been, as I would pick out two people, Stokely Carmichael or Dr. King, who would have been a more eventful or effective leader if you had to pick between Stokely Carmichael and Dr. King?
I think James Foreman.
Oh, not even the two. You would say Foreman would either be more.
Foreman was not a Marxist, so to speak, but he.
Do we need a combination of nonviolence and violence?
Well, we didn't need the violence because the white folks was doing that. Imagine people getting killed and your house getting burned up. The Prairie View Community Center out on Highway 50 was burned to the ground one night. Before we go, I want to switch up. West Point went from civil rights into economic development. And the only surviving daycare center left over from the civil rights era was established in West Point in 1969. It is still there. And I want local people to support it financially, take toys over there, and help these people do what they need to do. We didn't have daycare centers until that started. We had a credit union.
This was the beginning of something different.
No, this was King was killed in '68. We had a Clay County Community Development Center that had been burned. My husband ran against Old Main Barn Marshall for mayor and was in the runoff. During the runoff election, Mr. Thomas, one of our workers, was in the store waiting on his wife, Mrs. Thomas, to come out of the store. Mind you now, we had the boycott going on. And this white man just walked up and shot him 5 times. And one of the young men that was working in the movie that had lost a brother, had lost his brother Bold, that Mrs. McFarland's son, John sent him out to the store to get the van. And after all of these years, when I interviewed him, it was the first time he'd ever talked about it. And he talked about the blood all up on the dashboard and Mr. Thomas' brain all up on the seat of the car, and how when he drove the van, how the blood was still warm and running down in the car. So these are the stories that I tried to capture. I want to say to the world, it is not black history. It's American history. It's Mississippi history, for heaven's sake. And now that we are mandated teaching in our school system, every school in Mississippi should be about the business of working in their own backyard. Maybe if we could introduce some of these kids to who already in the community, like the man before me. Bring us in and let us talk. Because right now we don't have anything that we're working toward. You can go to school. But if you got a 33% dropout rate in West Point, what's happening here? Joe Adams was the first person to do a demonstration for school desegregation in '65 in West Point. He and Carl Rice.
They're wrapping me up.
Johnny Wilson.
We're going to have to come back and finish
I want to come back because there's much more for me to say.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. It has been my pleasure.
Thank you, Ms. Buffington. Thank you all for joining us. We're going to join you again. We're going to finish this conversation right here on Community Edition.
You have been watching Community Edition on WKDH. For comments or suggestions, please email us at manager@wkdh.com.